It's now 4:30.
I know.
And it's also February 10th, so I'm going to call this meeting of the Moorhead Public Service Commission to order. Could I have a motion, please, concerning the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
I will second his motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. That carries. Could I have a similar motion, please, with regard to the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I will second his motion.
I asked for something similar, you know that. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. In terms of customers to be heard and recognitions, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't congratulate the gentleman to my right for the wonderful job on the hockey day here in Moorhead. The fact that we recognized 50 years of hockey in this community, and in all honesty, I was at the sports arena this past weekend, and it's absolutely amazing how many people go through those facilities on any given day. I understand it was a complete success, so we owe you our congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other recognitions or customers to be heard?
No.
Okay. Any old business?
No.
Members of the City Council, what have you to report?
Just a couple of quick things, nothing too exciting. Last night, council approved the Oakport Water Tower Agreement. I don't think anybody was surprised about that. We also approved the 5-year transportation plan, which has some projects that will have some implications for MPS. We haven't approved those specific projects, but we've approved the plan. So those will be coming forward in the next 5 years.
What kind of implications would they have for
Well,
us?
just that there will be some joint work
Okay.
with the city and MPS.
Okay.
So you're going to dig some roads up, basically?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for Heidi?
Okay.
Thank you, Heidi.
Yep.
You're taking the general manager spot, Nancy. Anything that you need to report to us about?
No general manager report this time.
That was safe for you. Next, we have the 2014 Annual Reliability Performance Report. Who's going to speak to this? Travis?
Mr. Chair, did you miss the Public Service Commission report?
Well, you know, I may have. Hold on, Travis.
I don't have one. I'm just asking.
Does anybody up here have anything that they'd like to say?
No, but I think we're all equally offended.
I think we all are equally offended.
Well, then it would be my hope that you can equally get over it. Anything further? Mr.
No,
Parliamentarian, can I move on now? Travis, would you give us your report before
Sure.
this group becomes unruly?
I think they're already there. Travis Schmidt, Electrical Engineering Manager. The 2014 Annual Reliability Report is a report we give to you guys every year. Basically, this report is a report on our reliability for Moorhead Public Service within the City of Moorhead's service territory. Basically, what I want to report today is that in 2014, we met all 3 of our standards, our SAIDI, SAFE, and CAIDI standards. And then along with that, we also met our ANSI standard, which is our 99.99.41% standard. So SAFE, just for John's knowledge, is the system, or the, hang on here 1 second, System Average Interruption Duration Index. And basically this means is that the average customer minutes of interruption during the year. And that one was, if I remember right, 31 minutes. So most of our customers that saw an outage, or all of our customers that saw an outage, was about 31 minutes. The SAFE, which is the system, hang on, I gotta find the verbiage here. System Average Interruption Frequency Index was 0.6, and our standard is 1.0. So basically, 6 out of 10 customers saw an outage in 2014.
With an average of 30 minutes.
With an average of about 30 minutes, yes. And then the final one is the CAIDI, which is the Customer Average Interruption Duration Index. And this, again, is another minute one. We hold a standard of 60 minutes for that one and the SAIDI one. And that one was about 52 minutes. And that one's just a little different. It's based off the calculation and the customers that were actually out and how long they were out. So the customers that were actually out for the outages saw 52 minutes of outage. But the SAFE one, which is a 31-minute, was for the entire amount of customers that we had. So most of our high for outages was equipment failure, which could be a fuse blowing, a transformer going, an insulator or going bad, stuff like that. That's what our equipment failure is. We also had a few underground faults in 2014. This was basically all on distribution cable, so none of our feeders had faults. We also saw Ralph's favorite, squirrels, causing a large problem, and then we also had some weather-related or tree branch issues as well. Those were about 95% of our outages that we saw in 2014.
You know, I saw there was an article in the paper this past week about the city of Fargo looking at the possibility of taking over some downtown lines or doing something to hide them. And a statement was made by XL Energy that they preferred the above ground because they're so much easier to take care of and repair. But haven't we found that our underground lines are far less likely to have issues than overhead?
Correct, they are. I would suspect that what XL is talking about is due to the compact area that is in downtown Fargo, it is very difficult to get those lines in. They do take up a lot of space, and there is a lot of utilities already underground in the Fargo area.
On a comparative basis, maybe this is an unfair question, how does our reliability stack up with our neighbors?
We were actually trying to find that. There was no reports in the past few months of the reliability with Cass County or with XL. I would suspect that we definitely had a better reliability report than XL. However, I can't attest to that. And Cass County should have been fairly close to us as well.
Either way, this is an impressive report, and quite frankly, speaks well not only to the work that you do, but also to the work that everybody at Moorhead Public Service does. So, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Travis?
Just a clarification.
Sure.
You had said the .6, what does that represent?
.6 means that we want to make sure that our customers have no more than one outage per year. And so .6 means that they had less than one outage per year.
So on average, our customers had 0.6 outages.
0.6 outages per year, or 6 out of 10 people saw an outage.
And then just to mirror Ken's comments, I mean, 99.9 is big, 99.99 is big,
Yep.
and 99.994. I mean, we're getting to a point where this is like excellent.
Yep, yeah, we continually stay in that middle range of the
Just
between
can't get over that fifth nine, can you?
that. It takes a lot of
What
work.
are you doing?
I'm not going to say this loud, but I have a way to reduce the number of outages. Squirrel!
No,
Correct.
as a matter of fact, the squirrels cause a number of outages each time.
Correct. We try to stay between those 4 and 5 nines, and to get to 5 nines, you basically have to have a perfect year, and it's basically about 15 minutes of outages. So it's very hard to hit that number.
Good work. Dave?
Travis, looking forward, if you can see the future, what do our scores look like? Based on what we're planning, our strategies for moving forward, budgeting. It's okay, Ken.
You really want him to predict the future?
Well, a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to know what the guy responsible for this thinks our future looks like. Are we investing enough? Are we maintaining it well? Are we falling behind any place? Are there any points that we need to be aware of?
With some of the projects that we're doing in 2015, which we'll bring to you probably at the next meeting, a lot of that distribution cable that did fault last year, we are actually going to replace everything that had problems last year. On an annual basis, we go through and we look at the faults that we had and try to figure out what's the best to do based off how many faults a piece of cable has had. Just working through that, we've done a lot. We go out, we spend a lot of time, going through it and seeing what has old cable and what has the new cable, and trying to get rid of some of that old cable that's from the late 70s, early 80s.
Aren't we getting to the point that a lot of that old cable is going to have to be replaced?
A lot of the feeder cable has been replaced, or I should say all the feeder cable has been replaced that we're aware of. We're still working on the distribution. There's definitely a lot more distribution cable, which goes to your residents or your commercial businesses. There's a lot more of that out there, and we're trying to keep up with that. Back to Dave's question on are we staying to a point of trying to keep it. We're constant. However, I know staff kind of goes back and forth on whether or not, it would be, due to the amount of cost that it takes to do a project, we seem to be doing less and less projects annually because of the cost. So, it might be a good time to maybe reevaluate that budgetary number.
Especially when you look at if the West is really slowing down a little bit, we may have we may be able to get it at supplies a little bit cheaper and maybe even at manpower a little bit cheaper. And of course, money is still rather inexpensive if we need to fund it in a way other than through operations, so.
Correct, yeah. I guess Nancy's probably got a question on that. Go ahead.
Oh, I just had a comment too, if you're looking for some 5-year averages or something, we do in our staff annual report all these numbers, and you see a 5-year average, so you can kind of see a trend there too. And so I think we're pretty stable on those numbers, and even if you look at the next agenda item, Travis is going to report on the infrastructure improvements that we do put into the system to maintain these numbers, so I think that'll be a good indicator of where we're at and where we're going also.
I mean, is it safe to say that we have the same amount of cabling above ground or cabling that we have water underground? Is it about 200 miles or is it more?
It's more. It's about
more.
600 miles, if I remember right. So we do have a lot more underground cable. If I remember right, it's from here to Monticello or Clearwater in cable we have. I think it was a report I had done in the past. So we do have a lot more cable. Again, a lot of times it takes 3 wires because it's 3-phase over single-phase stuff where it would be just one pipe in the ground.
If I can go a little bit to the guy who wanted you to give the odds for Las Vegas. If you had a wish list in terms of reliability and moving forward, what would it be?
You know, I think one thing that we continue to look at is distribution automation. And we continue to, on a slow pace, add motor-operated switches into the system to reduce that time frame that it takes to get an outage put back. However, sometimes you just can't stop those things where a motor-operated switch might help out. However, we are working on a lot of that stuff as well and trying to strategically place switches out there. And, you know, again, like I said, you know, you may want to continue to look and seeing if there's a better route or you know, more budget to do that as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
This is just the kind of conversation that I'm looking forward to having at our Saturday meeting next month.
Well, and we want you to have something to look forward to.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But this truly is this kind of looking forward and discussion of where it is that we want to be, let alone will be,
Yeah.
is really what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Thanks for your answer.
Yep. The other, I think Ralph had a question there too. We have about 25% overhead compared to about 75% underground is what we have in our system, so for distribution.
So that's a pretty good number then, right? I mean,
Yep.
and we're reducing the overhead number even further, right? Or is
We haven't been. We've been kind of just trying to stay stable with that. As the city grows, of course, that percentage will adjust. But it is very difficult to put overhead lines underground with everything in backyards or in alleyways, and a lot of easements are required based off of how things were platted when those pieces of property were developed.
But all the new stuff goes underground, right?
Correct, yep.
And all the new developments also require those easements.
They all have them in the plats so
so
that
that
we
we
don't
can-
have to
yeah.
deal with it, so,
The older subdivisions did not have those.
which makes it very difficult to do that.
Any further questions on this matter? Could I have a motion to accept item 8D, please?
I move we accept the 2014 Annual Reliability Performance Report.
Second the motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. Then you're going to give us a report on item 8E, which is the 2010-2015 power system reliability upgrades. Sort of related to what we were just talking about.
Somewhat similar, however, this is more of our major projects that we've done over the past 5 years, from 2010 to 2015. Basically, this deals with the removal of the old power plant, the installation of the opportunity substation and the transmission line connected to that, our SCADA system, and I think I'm missing one here too. But those are the major projects that we've done over the past few years. Initially, we had a budget of about $9 million to do all this work. You know, initially, the 115 kV transmission line, that was about a $3 million project, budgetary-wise. We are basically very close to being complete with that project. We've got just a little bit of cleanup to do on it. We're hoping to have that done by the end of April. We're waiting for some parts to come back in to repair some of the equipment when that was installed that came damaged. So once that, and it's mostly fiber optic cable stuff, but still something that we want to get up and running as soon as possible. That budget, I don't think we have a final estimate on it, but I know it's going to be a little higher than the budget that we had on it. And that's mostly due to the delays in the project. The railroad was a major one, and some of the additional costs that we received above and beyond the contracts due to the delays that was caused. So we'll be given a final report with all those numbers once everything is completed, which I'm hoping will be later this year.
I see in here that part of this, your report includes language or references to the SCADA upgrades.
Yep.
And I would assume that we're going to have to enlarge that when Oakport finally comes online with us from an electrical standpoint.
Yep.
Do we
yeah.
have any idea what the anticipated costs or the size of that project will be?
Technically, we probably won't have to do a whole lot of increase in that, because most of it's going to be just distribution to the Oakport area. However, we will be putting a couple motor-operated switches in, which will require communication to them so that we can, again, reduce that outage time if necessary.
Okay. Any questions for Travis on this report?
Can I go through the rest of the?
Pardon? Yep, go
I
ahead.
got some more of the projects. So Opportunity Substation was about a $3.75 million project. We should see that one come in under budget. That project is basically done. We're just working to close that one out and work with the CNA Surety Bond Company to finish that one. Again, the SCADA project, that one actually came in under. Wasn't much, only about $12,000, but it did come in what we had finally estimated the cost to be. So, and then the power plant remediation, that one is still ongoing. I think we had initially budgeted $1.5 million. However, we brought it down to $1.2 million. We're going to see that probably in that 1.5 or higher range, just due to the amount of concrete that was out on that site. They've got a lot of the work done there, but they're still trying to finish everything up. I think at this point they're working at still removing some concrete. They've got the structures along the riverbank removed completely, and then all they've got to do is the bank unloading yet. So hopefully by the time June comes around, we should see that project completed as well.
So stuff in the river's gone. I'm sorry.
Yep,
No,
yep,
go ahead.
yep. The two inlet structures on the river have been removed completely. And I
Okay.
think that's
When do you expect that to be done, Travis?
we would suspect with some flooding or any issues that we've got going on and getting everything cleaned up, substantial completion should be probably May. We'll probably close it out in June sometime.
Les?
I don't know if you have the answer to this. Heidi may have the answer. There may not be an answer. Has there been any activity of interest in the old power plant location from either of your point of view? Have you heard of anything? I haven't. I'm just wondering.
Yep, I can go to if you want. There has been some interest from a Japanese garden group that would like to utilize the site. However, they want to wait till everything is completed there. I know there's been some talks and just some updates of what's going on, but there has been no formal action, I think, from City Council or from the group that would like to utilize that property.
Yeah, it's the Botanical Garden Society, and a big chunk of the space there would be used as a Japanese garden. They'd also do other things there. Their master plan has some office space, classroom space, some auditorium space. It really is quite a campus that they have planned if it goes through. It hasn't been brought up to council yet, but I see it. I see it coming shortly.
Okay. That also raises an interesting question as to whether or not Moorhead Public Service has any continuing use for the property, because currently it would be considered our property, I think, and I hate to use the term our, but what steps do we go through in terms of relinquishing that if in fact we had any other use for that property?
And what impact does it have on the tax, on the tap, right?
Well, that's a decision for the council to make, but all I'm saying is there something at that site that Moorhead Public Service would use that site for, because technically we've invested in it and it's technically ours, and it can't be used for another purpose until, I'm assuming, we pass a resolution. That's how I read the charter. But I don't know, and I can't foresee anything, but as staff, do we have anything in that direction? Is there any use for that property that we would use it for?
You know, in the past, I know Dennis Eisenbrown, our energy service manager, talked about maybe putting a solar garden there. However, I think that was kind of set aside and felt that it was a right spot for a solar garden. Other than that, you know, as of right now, I don't see any type of asset that we could set on that
Okay.
site. So.
Then we should, take a look at whatever steps have to be taken.
Is there any need for us to evaluate once again the stability of the site, the fault line? I mean, we had some results there that really did change directions on how it was. Anyone could use the site. I just wonder, as we've been pulling this apart and so forth, have we affected that in any way, or is there any particular need to understand that further?
With the request from the city of removing the entire structure and all the foundations and everything all the way down to the bottom, I don't think it's going to cause any instability on the bank. We're actually unloading the bank with this project. We worked with Houston Engineering and the city of Moorhead to put a plan together so that Landwehr, our construction contractor, our demo contractor that's doing the work, could actually unload that bank once they've removed all the foundations out of it to get rid of that sloughing issue that we were concerned about.
In regard to that, just what you were saying, when we take out those large structures, what will be put there in place of those that will shore up that bank?
We're going to, well, again, they're gonna basically reduce the grade on it. It'll be like a 7-to-1 grade, so it'll slope down a little better. So right now it's very steep embankment, and that'll go away with them unloading the bank, which again was going to reduce the amount of property that will be of value to somebody putting something on site, but it'll stop that sloughing or concern that they had there.
Okay. Any other questions? Could I have a motion, please, concerning this report?
I move to accept item 8E.
Is there a second? Les, did you second? Okay.
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. The next item is a report on the community solar garden. I'm going to assume that Dennis Eisenbrown is going to speak to that. Am I assuming correctly, Dennis?
You are assuming correctly. Dennis Eisenbrown, Energy Services Manager. Probably in the last year or so, a couple of times we have informally mentioned or discussed the concept of a community solar garden. We haven't done a lot about that this last year, but now this year I've decided it's time to start moving forward with this a little bit. And what this report is to give you an indication of some of the things that we've already done and some of the things that we plan to be doing in the next few months to see if this is a reality. One of the first things we did, with the help of Casey, we put together a survey to see what the public thought of us even doing something like this. The results are, I believe, on the second page of your report, but the results of the people that took the survey were overwhelmingly in support of us not only pursuing renewable energy projects, but doing something as specific as a community solar garden. And so we thought, well, okay, well, that gives us a little bit of impetus to do something. And so we are looking at doing something, actually building something. We would like to, the concept is for people, if they would like to have a solar panel, but they can't put it on their house. And so the basic concept here is that we're going to gang together a bunch of solar panels so then people could license the power from one of those panels for their home or business. And what we've done this month is we've worked with John Bolger to put together a license agreement for people that, because they'll basically enter into a contract with the utility for 20 years is what we're anticipating. And they will be able to, get the power benefits off that panel. If they move or, change the circumstances, we do have a way for that license to be transferred within our electric territory. Excuse me. So, and both of those documents have we have in draft form right now with John Bolger, and what we anticipate on doing at the next commission meeting on the 24th is to bring those documents to you and also bring to you a formal request to accept this project. And if you if you accept it, then we'll take the next steps. Really, and then the next step then is to have a public meeting on the 8th or the 16th of April, and we plan to have that here in this room. And then that'll just be a public meeting to answer questions for people, to talk to them about the project. Also then to hand out the forms that they would use for the license. And then, hopefully then we'll, what I'm going to do then at that point from that public meeting is gauge the interest in this. If we think that we have a strong enough interest, then I think that we'll pursue building this thing. But if we don't have enough interest, we're not going to do it. Because the point is that as much as it's possible, we're going to try to, this is going to be a self-funding project. It's not meant to be a burden to our ratepayers. This is specifically for, if you want solar, if you were going to do it at your house, you would buy it at your own house and put it there. And here, it's the same thing, but we're just grouping it together. But we're not going to burden our customers or ratepayers with this project. So if it can't be self-funded, we're not going to do it. So anyway, that's kind of the lay of the land there. Then, if we end up doing this and building it, what I foresee doing then is having it completed no later than the end of September. And what I'd like to have is a public dedication the first week of October during Public Power Week, like we did for the original solar arrays. Okay. So that's kind of the big picture.
Commissioner Bakke, you have a question?
Yeah, I should have mentioned this probably under Public Service Commission that I missed, but General Manager Bill Schwant and I attended a conference last week down in Bloomington, and one of the topics there had to do with solar gardens, and the Minnesota Municipal Utilities Association supposedly has an optimal size for a utility-sponsored solar garden. Are you familiar with that?
I've not heard of that, no.
I was thinking that because I hadn't heard of it before this one, and somebody just said it in a presentation in passing. It wasn't part of the presentation. I mean, they didn't have one on solar gardens. So perhaps you're familiar with the association,
I am
I'm sure,
indeed.
And you know where their resources are. Yeah. So if you'd check that out, it was something about an optimal size that was efficient and doable and all of those other good things.
If I might, Dennis, you look at the number of responses that we had vis-a-vis this survey, and it looks as though we didn't have many. This would not be a scientific survey, I'm assuming.
No, it's informal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if we're looking at making this kind of an investment, is it something that we want to have a larger number surveyed, number one? Number two, are you looking at the individual paying the $400 up front?
It will be, yeah, we're not exactly sure of the price yet. It could be anywhere from $400 to $800, depending on where prices come in. What I'm planning to do is, yeah, we're not going to be putting it on their bill. We've talked about that a little bit already, and there have been some issues in the past. Capture the Wind have, some people, it's easy to throw it on their bill, but sometimes then paying sometimes has not always worked well. So at least the initial plan is that we would have people pay for their license up front.
Would you get better participation if you made it easier for our customers? And by easier, I mean,
yeah,
rather than having them write out a check for their investment.
Yeah, I certainly think so. But
Okay.
And basically what we're looking for is we have the, if you look at the first page of this report, I got this off the internet. I believe if you plagiarize from one, or if you steal from one, it's plagiarism, and from many, it's research. Anyway, but this was taken from the internet.
You can get lots of things on the internet.
That's right. But this is almost exactly what it's going to look like, what we're proposing. And this very front row that you see here, that's about a 30 kilowatt system, and we're looking at putting up about a 20 kilowatt system initially. And what that is, in practical terms, that means 80 of these panels is what's needed to build that. And what we're looking at is leasing one panel per customer. So I'm looking for 80 customers. And if we can't get 80 customers, maybe we can get 60 customers, and some will buy more than one. We've already had an educational institution that I don't want to talk about right now has indicated strong interest at possibly buying a section of this already. So there is some public interest out there.
Okay. Any questions?
One question I have is, do we know whether the customers would get federal tax credit for investing?
They would not.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a tax attorney, but we're not doing anything with tax credits, and we're not doing anything of tracking the renewable energy credits. Even on the wind turbines that produce a lot more renewable power than these do, we looked at track renewable energy credits a number of years ago, and it was decided that there's a cost to doing that, and it costs more than what the renewable energy credits were worth. So nothing like that, no.
Of course, in order to track those on the wind turbines, they'd have to be operating at the time.
no.
Yeah. John, do you have a question?
Yeah, just clarification. With the 80 individuals, are you thinking that needs to be fully committed by 80 individuals up front, or are you looking at it 60% and then going forward?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've been asked that question by Bill, and I don't really have a good answer because, again, we're trying to fully fund this thing by itself. But, you know, if we can get only maybe interest to build half of it, you know, this thing is certainly scalable. So we could maybe start with a 10 kilowatt system instead of 20. So we don't have to build a 20 kilowatt system. That was just kind of a number we pulled out of the air, something that we thought was kind of an affordable range for us to deal with. So,
Well, and you might get some other input from MMUA when you
Yeah.
check with them as well. I have a lot of questions about this, and if we do it personally, I want to make sure that we can get as much participation as possible. And it seems to me that if we are banking that participation on an upfront expenditure by our customers, there may be a lot of customers who would have an interest who wouldn't be able to afford to do it in that fashion. And
I'm certainly open to that discussion.
because I know that the Capture the Wind program, sure, it had a few things to detract it, but it was such a large part of the community that wanted to be involved in that. I think that's something else that we should do, because we're also making this a bit of an educational thing as well.
One of the big differences between what we proposed to do here versus the Capture the Wind program was the Capture the Wind program, successful as that was, the customer would pay like $5 extra a month, and they would then basically be buying a certain amount of their power every month. On the few times when the wind turbine wasn't operating, we'll just leave it there, we actually would have, because essentially the customer paid for something they didn't receive because the wind turbine wasn't actually running. So then we had to go through our list of all the Capture the Wind customers and actually credit them back their money. Now, this program is entirely different. This is based on production. So if the solar panels produce power, you get the appropriate amount of credit based on how many panels that you leased. If they don't produce any power because it's cloudy for the whole month or something, there just simply isn't any credit that month. But it's all production based. It's not pay forward, it's pay as you go.
So what's the payback on the $400?
We're probably talking 19 years.
Okay.
At this, you know, the thing is, this isn't necessarily a way, it's not really meant to be an investment. It's, you know, if you're looking to make money, this probably isn't the vehicle to use. This is something you want to do because you feel it's the right thing to do, something that has some worthwhile, you know, future environmental benefits to it. I kind of use the analogy, it's sort of like buying an automobile. You need it, you want it, but it's never going to make you any money.
Well, it'd be nice if we could come up with some incentives for people to want to be
Right.
part of the program, even though it's not an investment.
Right.
Yes?
Yeah, the other question would be, I mean, do we know if I spend $700 on buying or leasing one of those panels as opposed to putting that same panel on my house, what that would cost me if I did that? Do we have a
It would be
comparison?
around $1,200.
Okay, so it's a benefit. If I want to
Right.
do solar, this is a benefit for me.
And
to do it.
because we're not, you know, we're not charging a profit to do this, we have essentially built in the federal tax credit into the price. You know, not formally, but you still, you know, if you were going to do it privately and then get the federal tax credit, you'd be spending about $700, $800. You know, so, and we're just charging that out front for this. And it's based on the costs, and if our costs come in lower, then the prices will be lower, so.
So you're going to be bringing this program back to us for reconsideration or for initial consideration to the
Right.
extent that we've not approved it yet?
Right, I'm going to come back on the 24th, basically with a formal proposal for the project and approval of the agreements that John Bolger has provided. So do you agree both on the project and the agreements? Because that's really what we're doing, what we're
Okay.
using.
I would ask between now and the time of that report that you follow Les's recommendation, at least find out what MMUA has to say about the subject, and also see if you can't come up with some incentives to make
Okay.
virtually anybody in the community participate or have the opportunity to participate. Did you have a question?
Yeah, well, actually, another comment to make, and we talked about it in our last meeting as well, as with the wind turbine, to just take us a different route now, with the 2 wind turbines reaching the end of their life, very likely. At some point, should we talk about maybe doing more on the wind side again? There was an interesting article in German news just last week about, they are coming into their 20 years with wind turbines, and they're taking the first ones down now, for a variety of reasons, and replacing them with new ones, and how much more efficient those are. And I know we have some height restrictions, issues with that, but maybe that could be an expansion of this discussion as well at some point, to go back on the wind side and do more there if it's possible.
Well, at the time that we did that program, we also had some real incentives, both from the
There were
state and
state
I
and
believe from
federal.
MRES.
And the state and federal incentives,
Yep.
so. yeah.
That's what made it affordable for us to do at the time. Any further questions for Dennis? Les? Okay.
I move to accept 8F.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. This brings us down to an item that we've discussed previously. That is to approve an agreement with the City of West Fargo for relocation of the 115 kV transmission line along 32nd Avenue South in West Fargo. And I see Mr. Schmidt has now approached the podium, and will try to talk us into this.
Yep, Travis Schmidt, Electrical Engineering Manager. Basically, we're bringing this back to you. Back in 2010 or 11, you guys did formally approve an agreement between West Fargo and the MPS. Basically, that was to deal with about a half mile of line relocation. Since that time, basically nothing has occurred out in that area. However, West Fargo is now doing a widening of 32nd Avenue in 2015, and we have conflicts with our easement and our line structure and where it's placed, that it needs to be relocated. So basically what we are doing is we are incorporating our initial agreement from 2010 on the relocation, plus the additional relocation for everything else that they're requesting. Right now, what we've got is an engineer's estimate. It's going to cost about $750,000 to do the project. Of that cost, MPS is going to see about $225,000 of cost that we'll have to pay for the project. And that comes from the original agreement back in 2010 of paying 100% for the relocation of Eagle Run 12th Edition, where they had put a pond in, if I'm correct, back in 2005 that we just kind of allowed. And then in 2010, when they informed us of putting more retention ponds in, we said no and came to a kind of an agreement that we would pay half for the Eaglewood Edition that is out in West Fargo, and they would pay the other half. And then everything basically east of Eagle Run 12th, all the way pretty much to Veterans Boulevard, is going to be at the cost of the City of West Fargo.
Questions? Are we entirely convinced that Moorhead Public Service is receiving a commensurate value to $225,000? I see this as a great improvement for the development in West Fargo. I'm not entirely convinced that we're doing or getting $225,000 worth of benefit.
I guess it's going to be a benefit to us because we are going to get upgraded lines. The lines out there are about 20 to 25 years old now. I think initially they were about 20 years old when we first started this process. We'll get upgraded lines. We're actually going to get upgraded wire as well from this. So we'll get new wire, new poles, basically for a 2-mile stretch.
Okay. Any questions?
Is that a good price for a 2-mile stretch?
Yeah.
Okay.
It comes in pretty close to what we did for the design. I should say the design is very similar to what we did for the Opportunity Substation. We went to a single pole structure, just due to the width and the widening of the roads and stuff like that. The only thing that is not included in that $750,000 is the cost of legal to do the agreement, and there's about 3 easements that we got to get. I think we'll be okay with those, and I don't think there'll be a whole lot of cost because it'll actually improve their ability to develop some properties that we need easements on. So,
Do we foresee any other relocations in West Fargo? And I guess to the people at home who may be watching this discussion, we actually do have some lines coming in through West Fargo that feed our entire system. So I again raise the question, are we going to see more of these? Because we've had them in the past, and West Fargo is growing by leaps and bounds. Right. And are we going to have to move anything?
this project will actually take care of everything west of the Cheyenne diversion, and basically it's about a mile or so to the substation, the DOE substation out in West Fargo. So, you know, there could be some development, some adjustment there. However, we're very far out in the field there that I don't know if they'd really want to touch that. And there's a lot of other transmission lines in that area. I just don't think that property is very developable.
So everything from the Cheyenne diversion into Moorhead is where it's going to be forever?
Should be. There are a few pieces of property along I-29 that may require some relocation if that ever develops between 42nd Street and the I-29. That would be the only other area that...
Is that in Fargo or West Fargo?
That would be in Fargo.
And who would bear the expense of that relocation or those relocations?
That, again, we've got our easements there, so I would suspect as long as we are on our toes on that, we would probably not incur any cost for that.
Okay. David?
Travis, again, what is the location of this work? I'm concerned about a possible conflict.
Sure. Basically, this stretch of line that we're going to relocate basically starts about 2 blocks west of Veterans Boulevard and continues all the way to the Cheyenne diversion along 32nd Avenue.
Okay.
Any further questions for Mr. Schmidt? John?
As far as when this project began, was there an anticipated cost that would Moorhead Public Service have to incur? And if so, what was that comparing to the $250,000?
Sure. At that point in time, what we had estimated, it was going to cost about $175,000 due to inflation and other increased costs because it's taken 5 years to get this completed. Basically, what has come back through the engineering estimate is it's going to cost us about an additional $50,000 above what we initially expected.
Okay. The next question would be if West Fargo, for some reason, then puts additional ponds under our lines in the future without permission, has it been discussed as how those costs are going to be handled?
With the way everything has developed, and I've seen the plans on how they're going to widen everything, I don't foresee any additional ponds going under the line because of the proximity of our line to 32nd Avenue. It's just it would be a very difficult thing to do.
I would have thought you probably would have said the same thing in 2010, but they still went and did that.
Correct.
So again, has there been any discussions in saying if they infringe on our easements that they'll be responsible for any costs?
Yeah, Moore Engineering, who's basically the city engineer for the city of West Fargo, has been very easy to work with since we've kind of, I guess, scolded them for what they wanted, what they had done back then.
Yeah, and those discussions were held at that time, I can assure you. Rather extensive discussions about those ponds and what we thought about them. As a matter of fact, this frees us up and we actually are in a better position, are we not, than we were at that time?
Yeah, actually with the project, we will be adjusting basically from the Cheyenne River to Veterans Boulevard in that area. We'll actually be shifting the line away from the road, so it'll actually give us a little bit better safety factor for vehicle accidents or anything like that, so we should just hopefully see less concern there.
And from a maintenance and work standpoint, you and Joe have talked about
Yep.
this, I'm sure, at length.
Yeah, with us, again, removing it from underneath the lines does make it a lot easier to work on if we have to go out and change out a structure or something like that. And we'll actually, with where we are placing it, we actually shouldn't really have any of our lines even overhanging a pond at all.
Okay, so we don't have to buy a pontoon at this stage?
No.
Okay.
Will they wooden poles or galvanized?
They will be wood poles and laminated poles, single structure.
Okay. Any discussion? Could I have a motion on item 9, please?
I move approval, item 9.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, the same sign. Then the next item apparently is related to that, and that is to approve specifications and authorize the advertisement for bids on this relocation project.
Correct. With the agreement, we also need to start moving forward with the specifications due to the lead times that it takes to get equipment in. We ordered some materials back in December for another project, and we're not going to see that project completed till March. So it's a lengthy process to get those materials in. So we want to get the advertisement of the specifications out there so we can get it bid, get the materials ordered, and be able to do the project over the summer months.
Okay?
I move approval, item 10.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. Item 11 is to approve the pipeline licenses with BNSF for water main work associated with the Sims project. Chris, I'm assuming you're going to speak to this issue?
Yep. Christopher Knutson, Water Division Manager. So as part of the Sims project, the Corridor Investment Management Strategy project this summer, we'll be doing quite a bit of water main replacement associated with road work done by both the DOT and the city. It's actually part of the 2015 through 2019 pavement management plan that Heidi alluded to earlier in the meeting. It'll be one of the main projects for the city this next year. And one of the smaller components of the project is we have 2 railroad crossings that we'll have to replace as part of that project, as well as a right-of-way issue that we're working on resolving right now. The last little paragraph in the report talks about right-of-way we'll need on 14th Street and Center Avenue. And unfortunately, the permit cost is about $48,000 for that particular permit. So we're working at some alternatives to mitigate that that cost. But the 2 crossings are reasonably priced, and we'll do those crossings for sure. But we're working on that right-of-way issue right now.
Okay. Any questions for Chris?
Get it done.
Could I have a motion, please, concerning this item?
Move approval of item 11.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. We'll now be going into closed session as permitted by Minnesota statute, section 13D03, to discuss the commission's strategies related to labor negotiations with the IBEW Local 1426 and ASME Local 1450. There may be action taken upon reopening the meeting. Could I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll now be in closed session. We'll talk about that. I'm going to call us back into open session. I think that Mr. Bakke has a couple of motions that he wants to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we, in closed session, discussed tentative agreements with 2 bargaining units that we have, and we came to an agreement on both of them, and I will read the first one, and we will take action, and I'll do the second one. Moorhead Public Service Negotiating Committee and General Manager request that the Commission approve the collective bargaining agreement between the Commission and International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 1426.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. I understand you've got a second motion.
The second motion is related to the AFSCME tentative agreement, and I will read it as follows, that based on Moorhead's Public Service Commission negotiating committee and the general manager, that we approve the collective bargaining agreement between the commission and the American Federation of State County Municipal Employees, also known as AFSCME, AFL-CIO Local Union 1450, with the addition of similar language to the IBEW contract related to life insurance and retirement.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Second. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. Is there anything else to come before this group?
I would like to comment on the negotiations which started back in November with the two bargaining units that are represented with our employees, and how cordial and get down to work both groups were with Nancy, Bill, Ken, and I, and the representatives from the group. And we should be proud of our employees.
I agree with you. The levels of communication were probably the highest I've seen them in several years. Anything else to come before this group? Okay. This meeting's adjourned.